Okay, so let's talk about it. I'm actually not at perfection yet. We've decided we're going to do one more burn to try and reach the ultimate perfection mark. But let me show you guys what we have done so far. This wood burn has definitely been one of the most challenging to date. So, a beautiful woman walked in, her and her husband, they wanted a wood burn. This was the original photograph that she gave me. Now, I sent her a message back and I said, this is a great picture. It's a beautiful picture, but there's certain features that I'm afraid won't show up on the wood burn. You can see his face is very, very dark. The sun is on her face, but his face is facing the back of the sun, so all of his face is shadowed, to where if I did this in a wood burn, his face would pretty much disappear and just be smooth background. So then she sent me this photo, which didn't help at all. Her face is completely shadowed over. I wouldn't see any detail in her face, and his face is pretty much the same way. So I try to explain to her what I was looking for, which is more of a forward-facing photo where I can make out the details of your facial features, including your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. These are all very important facial features that if you want your wood burn to be you and to be noticeably you, you want to be giving me a picture that has your full facial features. Otherwise, this would look great as a wood burn of two figures, but nobody would be able to tell who the two figures were. So if you want a wood burn that's like this, you're gonna see two figures, but you're not necessarily gonna make out who they are. Now, with the wood burns that we do, we crop the background out. We don't have to. So if you wanted your wood burn to be more about the scenery, you would give me a photograph like this, where it's more about the scenery than the actual subjects within the scenery. But if you want a wood burn of of yourselves so that you can make out like this is us and everybody knows who it is, then it's really important that we can see your facial features. So she gave me a couple of other photos, which this one was taken from a distance. Some of their features were blurred. When I zoomed in, I couldn't really make out some of his facial features. And things like her ear was completely blurry, and I felt like it wouldn't read well in a wood burn. So then she gave me this photo, which I thought was absolutely perfect. It's gorgeous. You can see both of their faces clearly. There's great lighting in the picture, and it's them coupled up close together, which makes them fit perfectly in a heart. So the first step was turning this photo black and gray and upping the contrast in the photo settings on my phone. Once I do that, I email it to myself and I go over to Procreate and I upload it to Procreate, where I do more artistic work. So I upload the photo into Procreate, ended up adding a lot of layers in with them. But I start out with an original photograph, and I add a heart in the background, and then I erase all the extra unnecessary stuff. So I remove all of the background and any part of them that's not going to fit inside the heart. Now I do have the heart on a separate layer. We burn the heart separately, so I give this to Mike as a whole separate layer for him to have separate settings on. And then I give him this as a separate layer for him to have separate settings on. And then I give them this as a separate layer to have separate settings on. So each layer has its own set of settings for how the burn is done, how deep the engraving is done, how many passes, the direction of the passes, etc. All these things are going to change based on the layer and the result that we're looking to achieve. So going back to the original photograph and just focusing on this, we decided to go ahead and just do a burn with it as is and see how it would turn out. This was the very first wood burn that we did, so we made no adjustments to the photograph. We used it just as is, and we put it in the laser, and this is what it gave us. Now, we felt like this wasn't really a good wood burn to be putting out to the customer. There was a lot of things about it that we didn't really like, including her hair lost all of the texture on the left-hand side. His face has almost disappeared. It looks blurry. It's hard to read the facial features. You can't see his beard. There's just a lot about it that isn't really reading well in the wood burn. So I came back to my Procreate app and I decided to add some highlights so that they would have a little bit more dimension. So I went in there and I added some highlights to her hair to give her hair a little bit more dimension in the wood burn. And I added some hair in his beard and a little bit of highlights to brighten his face up and add a little bit of contouring. So if I were to change the background to black and then remove the photograph of them, you can see the actual highlights that I added and what I did there. So from there we went back to the laser and we did another burn, and as you can see, her hair has a lot more dimension now. You can see a lot more curl in her hair. His face definitely is starting to look better, but he's still quite a bit blurry and not really reading well. So I went back to the drawing board again and I decided to add even more highlights, including the highlights around his rim of his hat, some more highlights to her hair, and just some overall highlights altogether. So now you can see the photograph is starting to look a lot better. So I added more highlights to his eyes, more highlights to his teeth, more highlights to his nose. I mean, we did a lot of work in here. We are like reshaping their entire face at this point. So I'm finally feeling like we are at a good place. I've got his face lightened up enough to where he is no longer going to be in the background, and they're both going to look like they're in the same place together. So I want to say this is about where we were at this point. So I go to the wood burn, we burn it again, and I'm feeling like, okay, she's definitely looking fly. She looks great. I love the way she's looking, but he's still losing some details. Like you can't really make out the chin, you can't really see the hair in his, face. His eyes are still a little blurry. So we go back to the drawing board and we do some more highlights and lowlights. And then we go back to the laser and we do another burn. And this is the last burn that we did and how that looks. So I'm loving the way that it looks. It's definitely looking a lot better when you compare the burns that we've done side by side. You can definitely see a clear progression of improvement here. Okay. So from wood burn number 1, okay, you can see all the detail. The hair is gone, his face. To wood burn number 2, getting a little better. To wood burn number 3, definitely improving. To wood burn number 4, which is starting to look a lot better. There were things that we liked about number 3 that we didn't like about number 4. So we're going to change up the settings a little bit and redo the wood burn one more time. I did go in and touch up just a couple of things today when we add in the dates and the background and the heart. This is the overall photo that we're going to be going with. But you can see from the original photo that we had and all of the extra highlights that we've added, I mean, there's a very big difference between the original photo and what we've had to do to get it to look accurate as a wood engraving. So we'll go back to the laser and we'll reburn it again one more time. Stay tuned and we'll be making another video when we do and show you guys the finished result. Thank you for hanging out with us and hope you enjoy the process. On a side note, Mike just completed this for the light box with his engineering ingenuity. He created this so that he can take the lights and feed them in through the holes and out through the other holes so the lights stay on and stay in place and
covered.
Everything's covered and looking pretty. Very nice. Excited to see how that light box turns out. We'll make another video for the light box, but he's definitely got some cool things going. He does the engineering side, I do the artistic side, and together we make really cool shit. Love you guys and stay salty, my friends.